Welcome to episode 4 of Nant Vowr Brews. My name is Andy and I'm a home brewer and beer lover based here in Cardiff in sunny Wales in the UK. Nant Vowr is a Welsh phrase. It means big stream or big brook. Nant Vowr Brews is the name of my minuscule home brewery and it's also the name of this podcast. The aim of this podcast is to have great conversations inspired by beer with people who are passionate about beer and do all this, ideally, over a beer. It's episode 4 and we are going off the beaten track. My guest today was worried he wasn't into beer enough to come on, but all are welcome here. And when a friend of mine told me the other day that they love this podcast and they don't even like beer, then I knew I was onto something and I knew today's guest would be brilliant. My guest today is from the United States. Again, what can I say? I must have cracked America. I would describe him as an enigmatic creative. He goes by just a single word as a name. To be honest, I don't know that much about him, other than he's a writer, a podcaster, and I think, maybe at one time, maybe still, a filmmaker. Like me, this guy likes making good stuff, I reckon. Now, the good stuff I make is beer. For him, it's... I don't really know, and we're about to find out. It's Ransom. How are you, my friend?
Oh, fantastic, brother. Thank you for that kind introduction. It's a thrill to be on your show, man. I've loved listening to it since I found it, and the similarity that we share is a love for creating, right? For crafting something that comes from a life, really. And we'll talk more about that, but I'm thrilled to be here, man.
Thank you. So it's early where you are, so I'm guessing maybe you're not having a beer, but I understand you might have undertaken some preparations for this interview in advance.
Yes, indeed. I wanted to, take part as fully as possible. So we went shopping, what day is it? A couple days ago. And so I strolled over. I went through the domestic aisle, and I was like, man, there's nothing here that's necessarily gonna really contribute, I think. I mean, it's fine. But so I went over to International Imports, and nice. I saw this single little six-pack sitting by itself between the Coronas and the Stellas, and I'd never seen it before, and it was just one of them. I'm like, that's it. That's the one. So I didn't even see the title till I turned it around, and it's something called Pilsner Urquell. It's a Czech beer.
Oh, Pilsner Urquell. Yes, I know it well.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it before, and I loved everything about it. It looks so official, right? The original Pilsner, right? What is that? So, grabbed it and had one that night, and I liked it. It's got that Pilsner sweetness, but it had this interesting kind of, just enough of that bitter overtone to make it interesting and unique. And I was like, oh man, I got to look into how this came about. Like, what did this beer come from? And you can probably tell me more about it than I could find myself. So.
Well, I'd love to sit here and pretend to be a massive expert, but Pilsner Urquell is one of those beers that you can get everywhere here in the UK. It's quite a mainstream beer, but then when you look into the background, it's hundreds of years old, the recipe and the brewery itself. I mean, I think it probably now has been bought by one of the big, mega brewers, but they've definitely maintained that brand, and it's a beer you can taste. Like I grew up, like a lot of people, drinking beer that is kind of mass produced, doesn't really taste of much, and a lot of people still drink that, and that's fine because that has its own place. But I remember Pilsner Urquell would be a beer that you might order at the pub thinking, oh, this will just be like a regular lager, pretty tasteless, pretty harmless, and then you'll go like, wow, it's actually got a taste to it. And what you were describing is that bitterness overtone. I was thinking as you said that, it's almost like it's got a bit of a spice to it, hasn't it? It's a bit darker than a lager, and it's got a bit of taste to it.
Yeah, exactly, man. It was a surprise. I've had Pilsners before and kind of thought I knew what I was in for. And then as soon as I drank it, I was like, okay. All right. Something unique here. Something interesting. And that's what, to me, that is the coolest thing about beer. And I listened to your last episode and, the microbrewer there, Bad Idea. What a great name.
Yeah.
Talking about the surprises, the happy accidents, right?
Happy accidents, yeah.
Yeah, I just, it sparked my imagination just drinking it. And I think that's one of the best things about trying a new beer,
Well, I'm made up that even the fact that we agreed to do this interview made you go somewhere to buy a beer in a way that you wouldn't have done before, try something new, and then you liked it. That's brilliant. And I guess in a way, it goes back to what we were saying about us both being creatives, is that you then respect other people's creativity, and then that leads you into a different direction.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's this beautiful cycle that if we can, once you plug into it, it only keeps generating good things.
I should explain a bit about how we know each other, although, to be honest, we're kind of getting to know each other while making this episode.
Right.
But I write on Medium, as I mentioned before on the podcast, and so do you. And what I like to do on there sometimes is find articles by writers I've never come across before, read an article of theirs properly, highlight it, clap and comment, and not for any particular reason other than it's someone that I haven't read before, and it's the kind of beautiful randomness, a bit like you in the shop picking out the Pilsner Urquell. And so I have no idea why I picked an article of yours. I think it's probably the cool logo that you've got. I should explain. This is what I'm looking at now. Ransom has just got his Revenant Alien icon. That's what I'm calling it. It's like the classic alien-shaped face, then with the hat on, and then with the kind of RA and a cross on it. I mean, I will put this icon up on the image for the podcast so you can see it. But that, I think that stood out to me. And then I read your stuff, and then you read mine. You very kindly had a listen to the podcast and said you liked it, and we went from there. So first thing I want to do, Ransom, is I want to thank you for your positivity and encouragement, because there genuinely isn't loads of that around in the world at the moment. So when you get it from someone that you don't know, it means a lot. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Same thing, brother. Listening to your stuff just... it's kind of like a ray of sunshine on a cloudy day. You don't expect it, but when it hits you, you're like, oh, man, I'm thankful for that. I'm grateful that there's somebody out there creating something interesting, and there's a beauty to it and a love there. And that way makes the whole world a better place. And you're right. It's tough out there these days. And so to be able to do that for each other, even as distant citizens of different places, that's great, man. I love this.
Distant citizens. That you've just invented another podcast brand. We're going to have to, dial up random people on the other side of the world and have a conversation. Honestly, there's millions in it, mate.
I love it. I'm in. We'll talk later. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I should tell you what I'm drinking. So, last weekend we went to see some friends in Devon, and I went, a bit like you actually, I went into the shop and was like, let's look for something unexpected. And I tried to buy lots of different types of local beers, and this one particularly appealed to me. It's called Reel Ale, but with the reel spelt like a kind of fishing reel, and it's got a picture of a guy fishing on it. And it says it's brewed to a 200-year-old recipe on the historic site of Tucker's Maltings, whatever that is. And then it also said, I like this line, it's got selected English aromatic hops and yeast from a secret supply. I was like, what is this secret supply, and how do they get access to it? So yeah, that's what I'm drinking, and it's very nice. Although it's quite lively, which is why I had to pour it into 2 glasses. But it's settling down now as we speak.
Good.
So there you go. And what, have you actually got any liquid in front of you at the moment at all, like a coffee or something?
I do. I have some tea. I almost threw a splash of Jameson in there, but I'm like, you know what? I need to stay focused. It's not even noon. Come on now. Think of the pot.
And where in the world are you at the moment?
So I'm in Los Angeles, actually a little suburb called Burbank. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's where the Disney Studio lot is and the Warner Brothers lot. Just kind of this little suburb north of LA proper. So, nice kind of packed suburb, fun little community. And we've been here since just before the pandemic, actually. Moved over here in 2019. So,
okay. Now, the kind of obvious question here is, LA, film. I think you trained as a filmmaker, is that right? So is there a film link somewhere, or is that just lazy? It's a bit like whenever I say I'm from Wales, people go, oh, do you know this guy? Because they think of like Wales as being a small country, and I must know them. So have I just fallen for that trap immediately?
It's a little bit of that, I guess. So I was actually trained as a screenwriter officially. So that's what I got my master's in, which is it's a really unique writing form. If you've ever seen a screenplay, I don't know if you have, you can probably find one online. But I was trained as a visual storyteller. So as a screenwriter, you have to consider the final image, the final scene. You have to actually kind of create the movie in your head, translate it into words, and format it on the page in such a way that someone reading it feels like they're watching the movie, which is a really unique skill. One that, tens of thousands of people are cutting their teeth on, and so it's a really competitive field. And then you got to find somebody who wants to make it, which is even the harder part. So, but it's a really fun form, and I haven't been able to get back to this one that I'm outlining recently, this one script, which is, it's gnawing at me. But yeah, I find that getting the podcast done, writing on Medium, and just playing my guitar keeps that creative itch scratched, and I'll get back to the feature when it's time, I guess.
I mean, everyone says, there's a book in you, but for some people, there's not a book in them. There's an album in them, or there's a film in them. There's some kind of story or expression that they want to get out there. For you, the screenplay, you've obviously got this particular idea for the film that you can see in your head, and at some point, at the right time, it's going to come out. Is that the way you look at it?
It's like in making the podcast and writing on Medium, it's more about what I want it to be, what I want to make, and not worrying about what comes after that. Because if you try, actually tried this during the pandemic. I tried to write something that I thought would be easy to fund and easy to make and that sort of thing, and that just paralyzed me. Like I went through, 5 or 6 different starts on things that I thought I could make with that mindset, and I just couldn't do it. So I had to just chuck all that and say, you know what do I actually want to write, and focus on that.
One of the big arts of creativity is moving a lot of stuff out of the way to get at what you actually want to do or what you want to say. It's funny you mentioned screenwriting, because I've actually been on a screenwriting course, because I used to work for a radio station. I used to book all the movie guests, and I was like, I needed to understand more about the industry. And film critic guy, he said to me, the best thing you can do to understand the film industry is go on a screenwriting course. You're then going to the source of what all of this is based on, which is storytelling. So I went there and did this course. It was fantastic. And I think it was honestly life-changing for me. There's one thing that anyone that's worked with me will have heard this over and over and over again. I like a broken record wearing myself out saying it. And my friends listening to this will be, yeah, we know what's coming. And I learned it on the screenwriting course. And it's that idea of show, don't tell. So instead of the whole exposition, like, what, you mean the crooks are after us? That type of thing. You show, the example that my teacher said is like, don't write that this character is a badass. Have them do something badass or say something badass. And then that demonstrates it. Yeah. Okay, so that's up there in the background. The screenwriter's in the background. But your podcast, Ramblings of a Revenant Alien, what's that all about?
It's funny that actually putting that out on a Medium article hopefully soon. This guy wanted to put it in a publication, so I'm waiting for him to approve it. But I will give the preview here.
Exclusive,
exclusive,
I love it.
Everybody. It was a journey, So, man, the pandemic and it sounds like a broken record, speaking of broken records, but it knocked me for a loop, man. It just took me out. I did not have a good attitude about the lockdown measures here in Los Angeles, especially as it kind of continued. And if you know anything about LA, it's one of the more conservative places as far as pandemic measures go. So our kids, right, they were sent home and did remote school for the rest of 2019. They did remote school all the way until the spring of 2021. And so from 2019 up through the beginning of 2021, I was just mad. I was bitter. I got cynical. I let in some bad spirits, kind of, so to speak. I knew it was not good, but sometimes, even though it's not good and you're angry, instead of grieving and trying to heal, you just simmer, right? So I simmered until the beginning of 2021, and that's when I finally realized, or I finally had the courage to say, like, man, you can't keep going on like this. It's just not. It's not a way to live for anyone around you or for you. It has to stop. So, I turned over a new leaf and just started kind of tooling my mind and saying, okay, what? Because the screenwriting, like I said, I'd been spinning my wheels trying to make something that I thought would sell, and that wasn't working. And so I was like, okay, first, let me set that aside for a second and just think, what is something that I can create, right? How can I be a light source and not a black hole,
I love that.
So a couple things started to kind of coalesce and started to kind of spin around each other. One was the idea of a podcast, like just doing that, because I've been listening to a lot, as we all, a lot of us found a lot of podcasts during the pandemic. I loved your story of how you found that brewing book, that classic book in your garage. That's so great.
Yeah. Sat there for years. Little did I know that it would one day have such a big impact on my life.
Right, it's beautiful. So, and similar. So for me with podcasts, I always loved radio dramas and Prairie Home Companion. I remember it was a big American radio show, variety show that I would listen to sometimes, and The Shadow, like these old radio shows. And so that all kind of, I was like, a podcast would be really fun. I would enjoy doing that. And then that's when the idea of the title started to kind of coalesce. Ramblings. I like to ramble. Revenant Alien is kind of it's a faith position, right? Like, I'm a follower of Jesus, and then you're not quite at home in the world because you follow this different set of thought patterns. I'm like, Revenant Alien. That sounds like Resident Alien, but it's kind of a play on words. And so it's like Ramblings of a Revenant Alien. It's hard to say, but I don't really care. I kind of like it. It was kind of perfect. So there's a title.
It sticks in your head. It's a good title. It sticks in your head.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Right, look, I should really, since it's a beer podcast, and you were kind enough to go through the beer questionnaire and say, some of these questions I can answer, the other ones I might be a bit lost on. So let's get some of them done.
Let's do it.
What was the last beer? Well, actually, we've already done what was the last beer you had, because it was the Pilsner Urquell, right?
Yes, sir. It's right here.
Unless you had one in between.
No, it would have been another Pilsner Urquell, but no, that's what it is, man. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we've done Pilsner Urquell. So what was the first beer you ever had?
It was a Yingling IPA, and this is a fun story. So, I grew up pretty conservative, or rather pretty sheltered. I consider myself, kind of broad-minded individual, but, I hadn't had anything to drink until I was 21. A couple of friends of mine were in the military, and so they had, had a bit more experience than me. And they're like, all right, dude, we're going to let you sample your first stuff with us around because you can trust us not to leave you in the middle of the street in your boxers somewhere as a joke, right?
Nice.
So that won't happen to you. Thank you, man. So yeah, I had, we did some tequila that night, I believe. And then, just one Yingling IPA. And so that was my first, real experience of any kind of beer. And it was,
that's quite a classy starting point.
Yeah, it really was. And, it's funny. I'll put it this way, right? If beers are like music, I didn't really understand an IPA at that time. I didn't know what I was in for. Yeah. I'm like, wow, that's really sharp, This Yingling is a particular one anyway. But I was like, that's all right? This is step one, and now I'm in a safe place with my brothers here. So yeah, I'll try whatever they want me to try, man.
It's a bit like if the first music you ever heard was like Rage Against the Machine or something like that. It would be like a bit of a assault on the senses.
Yeah, it's like, wow, that's a bit strong. Okay, this is music. Interesting.
Quick aside on Rage Against the Machine, because I had that very similar experience when I was at school, and this is, I don't even know how old you are, but I'm 45. If you're of a similar
I'm pretty close.
Me,
I'm pretty close.
There you go. Then you may identify with this story. So, back before streaming and all that kind of stuff, when music was still kind of physical formats, and how you would find out about music was either by listening to the radio or by your friends giving you tapes. Yeah. And a friend of mine gave me a tape, and up to this point I'd just been listening to pop music radio, whatever my parents had on.
Yeah.
And you keep hearing these. You're a podcast fan, so you'll understand this as well. You keep hearing these podcasts where people go, "Oh, so where what was your music? Where's your music taste come from?" And they always go, "Oh, my parents had this amazing record collection. It was like Stevie Wonder, and it was like classical music, and it was like this and this and this. It was like everything covered." And I just think, my parents did not have that great record collection. We just listened to a lot of radio. Although my mum did have some good, a collection of good singles. Anyway, I got handed this tape at school when I was 13.
Yeah.
Having listened to only pop music up to that point, just rubbish in the charts. Mm. And on one side it had Ice-T, and on the other side it had Rage Against the Machine. Mm. And that was definitely a interesting evening when I stuck that on the cassette player.
I can imagine, man. Which one did you start with? Which side?
I started with Rage Against the Machine.
There you go. Do you remember the
thought,
first song?
Nothing can shock me. Nothing can sound less like the music I've ever heard than this. And then I put the other side on.
Oh, man. Yeah, I loved Rage Against the Machine, man. So I was a football player, American football, which is just smash mouth, run into each other kind of sport, if you've ever seen it. That kind of music actually was really motivating stuff. You're going into battle. You're going to put your body out there and try to drive the other guy back so you could win the game. So I loved that kind of music for what it was, either in the weight room or before a game. But it's very strong for sure.
Yeah, that was the first beer, was the Yingling IPA. I've not heard of a Yingling IPA. Was it quite strong? Is that kind of
I'd say
one of these strong IPAs?
It was sharp for sure. It was much bitterer than I expected. At the time I would have said it was metallic. So it's possible it was a bad batch, but I think, like I said, I just didn't understand IPAs. I didn't know what I was in for. So, as I've tasted more things, lagers, pilsners, and that kind of thing, okay, I understand. There's a broad range of what beers can be. IPAs more in this zone. Well, in fact, a friend of mine here across the way in our little apartment complex, he's a big beer guy, and he gave me a hazy IPA with some citrus notes in it, and that was delicious.
Yeah, they're very trendy at the moment. The kind of ones you can't... They almost look like orange juice in your glass.
Yeah, it really was. It was good, though.
So what would you say your favourite beer is?
Oh, I'm terrible with favorites, but I'll kind of give you some of the things that I like. I love amber ales, so I love a good Fat Tire, right? Or that New Belgium brewery. Love those guys. I like a good crisp lager, in its time. Yes. So I'll get a Stella here and there if I'm I just need something light, right? It's summertime, it's hot. Hand me a Stella. And I really love Blue Moon, man. That Belgian wheat ale.
Oh, I can't. No, you see, this is where we're gonna.
Oh, we're gonna diverge.
Diverge.
Oh, hit me, man. Yeah, tell me about it.
I that style of beer, for whatever reason, I just my taste buds just can't deal with. Now, I'm quite happy to taste it and as an experience, but it's not. I really think that one of the biggest things about beer is you've got to enjoy it, right? And if you're drinking something And sometimes when you get into the real kind of craft ale scene, you know, you sometimes get the impression of like, are you actually enjoying drinking that? Or is it, are you just kind of more thinking about the crazy tastes that are in it? And Blue Moon's is just a drink that I don't enjoy, but I understand that others absolutely love it. So yeah, no, that's cool. And good on you.
Dude, I respect that too, man. Like, I think the IPA zone is that for me, where like I either like it or I'm like, yeah, I don't need to have any more of that. So, which it's funny because I know people love IPAs. It's really a lot of people's thing. So, which again is just the fascination of like how different people are and how all these recipes resonate with different people, just like music, just like any podcast, right? It's great.
Exactly, yeah. And it's interesting that I was just about to do what you did, which is then widen it out from beer to other creative forms, because it's really weird the way that the river goes. You know, it kind of bends this way, then bends that way, and suddenly this type of music or this type of filmmaking is really in the zone and everyone seems to like it. And it's really hard to pinpoint where these little movements and little trends start from. And I guess that's almost part of the complete randomness that makes all these scenes fun, right?
Yeah, it's there's so many factors that are going into things, and I always laugh. I used to work in marketing, and the way people would try to pinpoint the cause of some trend and then go after that trend, and I'm like, bro, you can't duplicate it, right? It's lightning in a bottle. Things happen for reasons that we cannot wrap our brains around, and they take on a life of their own, and we all kind of go along for the ride. But you know, when you try to distill it, no pun intended, it often you get one part of it, sure, but you're not getting the whole experience, and you can't duplicate it.
So, all right, what's the worst beer you've ever had?
You know, it's funny. I might say that Yingling IPA, but I was thinking about it. And my friends, they're listening to this like, oh man, you never said anything. Anyway, but it was actually, for me, again, I'm sure some people really love this particular beer, but for me, it was just punch in the mouth. It's the Firestone Double Barrel Ale. It's super strong. And it was just way darker than I expected. My wife and I were doing a tour of some wine country north of LA, and we stopped by that brewery. And yeah, man, I did a beer flight, and that one was just like, oh no, thank you. Wow, I don't need any more of that. I got it. Thanks.
You weren't stood at the bar with the brewer looking at you, were you at that point?
No. I think we were off at our own table, and so I took it, and I was like, okay, I'll just set that right there, and we'll move on to the next one. Being a creator, I never want to dump on someone's creation, you know, right? Somebody loves that. Somebody went after it and they got it made, and it's not for me, but hey, if it's for somebody else, that's great.
This is another thing that happens in the kind of craft ale scene, and going back to the first episode with Micah, who was talking about visiting all those microbreweries, you know, sometimes you go into a place, and probably Micah has this a lot because he tends to go early when it's not busy, and you know, you'll talk to the person there, and this is their life's project. And you know, that really came across to me on the last episode, speaking to Zach, you know, just how much hours and blood, sweat and tears he's put into that. And you know, you imagine you cruise into Bad Idea Brewing, you know, when they've just opened up, and you go, go on, give me something that you're really proud of. Then he sets it down and you drink it and you're like, this is horrific. You know, you've got to kind of style it out, because you probably just bought a whole pint. I'd like to think that now, I actually think that the craft beer scene is good enough that if you went, I'm sorry, mate, I just really don't like that, can I have something else? Then he'd just laugh it off.
Yeah, I hope so.
But you can imagine that conversation going a different way in maybe the music scene, certainly.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Look, so home brewing is about having a go at making something you love. Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. You know, it's I'm when I make my home brew, I'm not trying to beat the professionals. I'm not trying to emulate them. I love the process, and I come out of it with something not always that tasty, but it's always, you know, it's that like that thing of food you've cooked yourself tastes better. You know, you come out with something that is good and it's good to share. So what's your equivalent? What are you kind of having a go at making just for the pure love of it?
It's my music, I'd say. And that's when, you know, going back to the podcast kind of formulation, that was like a second stage of it. You know, once I'd figured out Ramblings of a Revenant Alien, right? These little vignettes, these, you know, mini kind of soliloquies. At the same time, I had rediscovered this love for the blues, and specifically blues guitar. And I'd always wanted to play it. I'm always humming blues tunes to myself. And I played a little rhythm guitar as a teenager, but nothing amazing. And I said, you know what? It's time. So, I worked on getting my hands on a guitar. And as I was doing that, I realized, like, wait a minute, the podcast is going to need interstitial music. I don't want to use canned stuff. I can't afford it. I'm like, that's it. So that would be the motivation, both to keep practicing, to keep getting better, and to really give the podcast kind of its own flavor. And so that's kind of like the ramblings of a Revenant Alien has a bit of a Western feel or a Southwestern feel, right? The cowboy hat. And I don't know if you can tell, but the shape of the alien's face is a pick. It's a guitar pick. A little Easter egg there. And so I was like, that's perfect. That's it. So
yes, it is.
Yeah, that kept me at the string, so to speak, and forced me, like I set my deadline to launch in January 2022. And I practiced, and I got it as good as I could. And a lot of the music is the original recordings. I hope to spice them up and spruce them up here soon, but I don't know when I'll get the time. So that's what it is. Just playing the music, improvising along.
So you had that deadline was for when you wanted the podcast to launch and you wanted the music ready. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Yeah, the theme music and all the interstitial stuff. Yeah.
That's brilliant. And I think that's such a key thing is, I was thinking about this today, as well as show don't tell. Another thing I say to people a lot is done over perfect every single time, and I've definitely fallen into that perfectionist trap at times in my career and also just in my kind of personal life with other creative stuff. Just not doing something for fear of not doing it to some standard that's probably ridiculous anyway. And since I've moved past that, I've just had so much fun creating stuff like this podcast. Like, it's done purely for fun. And if I hadn't have started it 6 weeks ago, I would not be having this conversation with you now that I'm thoroughly enjoying. I'd just be sitting there tonight going, I wonder, shall I start that podcast? And I'm such a big believer in this. Is that something you found as well?
Absolutely, man. Done beats perfect every time, and especially with music, right? So if anybody listens to my latest Halloween episode, you'll hear the new title track that I put in there, just this slide guitar kind of, spooky melody. And that took me forever to record, man, because I'm just not good enough to nail it on the first try. I'm just not yet. But I can nail it enough times that I can stitch it together and make it sound like one piece, which is the goal. Gosh, it must have been maybe 2.5 hours last weekend just going over and over and over that, and finally got the right takes to be able to put it together. And it's like, you know what? Yes, it could still be a little bit better, but I got to finish it. I got to be done. It was thrilling to finally get it to a place where I listened to it all together and I'm like, okay, if you didn't know that that's about 8 takes pasted together, it's no problem. It sounds good. It sounds good enough for sure, and I kind of like the way it ended up. So absolutely, you can't. And launching the podcast, that was the same thing. It's like, look, you can't be perfect out of the gate. If you could, you'd be like Mozart. So you just got to finish it and get it done. I'm 100% with you there, man.
Let's make sure that everyone listening knows exactly what your podcast is, what it's called, where they can find it. Because I think the way you've talked about it, I've checked out a couple of episodes, but I definitely want to get deeper into it. So just give us the full kind of lowdown.
Absolutely. So it's called Ramblings of a Revenant Alien. Tagline is Back Porch Wisdom and Blues. Things worth saying, music worth playing. Ain't no beauty without pain. So that's the flavor of the show, and it's just you can find it on any podcast platforms. It's all over the place. I did all the little ticks on Anchor that you could get it out to different places.
I know those ticks.
It's everywhere. And yeah, it's just blues music and me talking about whatever's on my mind. Right now, there's kind of doing themed episodes interspersed with interviews. Got another one of those coming out in a couple of weeks. So just trying to let it mature and grow. And really, it's kind of the kind of podcast where if you're riding alone in a car and you need something meditative, it's good. Sitting at home by a fire or sitting with a bowl drink, it's good for relaxing the soul, I'd like to think. And it's for the people, It's for people to come to feel safe, to feel at home, feel welcomed, and just come away with a bit of wisdom. That's what I'm going for.
That's brilliant. Now, I've got a quote to throw at you, and I'd be interested to know if you recognize it. You know how we humans can be. The longer we go without hitting a wall, the more we imagine we're invincible.
Yeah, man, that's in episode 6, Lessons from the Wreckage, dude. That's a good one. I like that one.
That quote really hit me hard, and it's an incredible story. I don't know, we probably haven't got time to tell the whole story, but basically you were involved in a motorcycle accident, and it really made you think, wow, just that, wow.
Yeah, exactly. A wow to be alive, wow to not be more seriously injured. I do a mini version of it. I T-boned a guy who was turning left in front of me because I thought he would stop and he thought I would stop. So the bike hit straight on right as he stopped. I went over the hood. The bike hit and fell straight down. And I went over the hood and a little bit of damage, but I walked away without any broken bones even. And that's kind of miraculous because you can think of all the ways a bike can turn when it hits like that, it could have swung left and ripped my leg off, right? I could have hit the helmet just right and snapped my neck, right? But here I am, like almost like it didn't happen. So yeah, that whole episode is that idea of like when you survive something like that, you learn, if you're listening, right, to the wisdom that is trying to get pounded into your brain. And I was happy to be off the motorcycle after that. I was already trying to be, but that kind of did the deal. It totaled the bike, and insurance payout got us a new little sedan that we still drive. So that idea really kind of matured into that episode. The idea that when we wreck, when we crash, there are lessons in there. And I think it's things that we almost can't learn until we wreck. And then we look at the pieces and they teach us new things. And then we can heal and take those lessons forward with us.
Well, look, I think that is superb wisdom to end what has been an incredible episode. I mean, the ground we have covered in, just under 40 minutes has been absolutely incredible. Ransom, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and thank you for going as far with the beer as you could. I actually think you did really well. You did really well with the beer. So, I definitely don't accept that thing that anyone doesn't know enough about beer to come on this podcast. And it's just about having good conversations, and I've really enjoyed our chat. So thank you very much, Ransom.
My pleasure, Andy. Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to continuing to follow you as you explore the world through the bottle, so to speak.
Yes, nice way to put it. All right, mate.
Take it easy, brother.
Okay, a big thanks to Ransom for being on the podcast. I can't believe we've done 4 episodes already, 4 guests that are completely different. I suppose one was me, so maybe I can't quite count that one. But anyway, 3 fascinating guests, and I'm always looking for new guests. So if you want to suggest yourself or someone that you know, hopefully having heard this week's episode, you realise that the link to beer only has to be very, very tenuous. And even if there isn't one, we can find one. And really what it's about is a nice chat. The good thing I'm finding about beer is there is always a way into other interesting conversations. So yeah, feel free to suggest yourself or someone else. The best way to do it is to email me, andytaylormovies@gmail.com. That's andytaylormovies, all one word, all lowercase, if you're bothered about the case, @gmail.com. A couple of other things to tell you about. One, I'm going to try something different in a future episode, and I've been contacted by a podcast company, innovation company, and I'm all into podcast innovation. They are called Rumble Studio, and what they do is asynchronous podcasts. So that means when you're recording the podcast not at the same time. So create this link and it's got some questions on it. I can record those questions and then you can listen to them, record your answers just on your phone or into your laptop microphone, and then the software will send it back to me, and then I can build an episode out of that. So it doesn't need us to be having an interview with each other at the same time. So what I did was I created a few questions and I sent them out to my friends, and none of them have got back to me yet. That shows you the quality of delivery amongst my mates. It was only a group of about 3 or 4 people, but guys, if you're listening, come on, pull your finger out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to anyone. Now, I'm not pretending that this podcast has even hundreds of listeners. It doesn't. But if you're listening and you'd like to be on the podcast in a slightly new way, maybe you don't feel like you want to be the sole guest on a podcast, but you feel like you could answer a few questions. These questions are based on the Beer Questionnaire that I've done on myself famously, but with a few other people as well. I did a few of the questions with Ransom. Easy questions about beer. First beer you had, last beer you had, favourite, worst, all that kind of stuff. The link to this asynchronous interview via Rumble Studio you will find in the episode notes of this podcast. So go and have a look, click on the link, and if you want to contribute, just answer as many questions as you like. You don't have to answer all of them. The software will automatically send me your answers, and once I get enough of them in to make up an episode, I'll cut them all together and we'll make an episode out of that. So that's something you could be doing if you want to support the podcast. And other than that, it's just to say thank you for listening and all the usual stuff. Like and subscribe. I really hope, brother-in-law Ben, that you're enjoying this bit at the end. I think you've opened a bit of a Pandora's box here, because ever since I've started doing this bit at the end, it's just got longer and longer and longer. So if you're bored now, it's all down to Ben. Blame Ben. Anyway, that's the end of this episode. Between now and the next time we speak, have a fantastic life. This is Andy, signing off.